Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. Ancient Rome. The marble statues, the gleaming aqueducts, the baths of Caracalla, the mighty Colosseum echoing with cheers, all very glamorous until you scratch the surface. And then it smells like fish sauce, communal sponges, and a suspicious lack of soap. Because under the Golden Eagle standards and carefully sculpted togas was a world where clean was more of a social posture than a physical state. You've heard about the Roman baths, but have you ever wondered what happened when the water stopped flowing? When the sponge bucket turned sour? Or when public toilets doubled as places to argue about grain prices? Tonight, we're diving deep into the world of ancient Roman hygiene. And let's just say, it gets uncomfortable. But before we go any further, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy the strange, sleepy journeys we take here. And let me know in the comments what time it is where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see who's joining us from around the world, whether you're listening at midnight in Madrid or dozing off during lunch in Saskatchewan. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum in the background. Wrap yourself in something cozy. Let your muscles start to relax. You don't need to go anywhere. Just settle in. Because tonight's journey, the dirtiest secrets of hygiene in ancient Rome, you'll wake up in an overcrowded tenement with a chamber pot by your straw bed. You'll trudge barefoot to a public latrine, praying you don't make eye contact with the guy across from you. You'll wipe yourself with a vinegar-soaked sponge on a stick. Yes, really. And if you're lucky, you'll end your day only slightly more diseased than when it began. This isn't a documentary. It's not a lecture. It's a bedtime time machine. You won't be Caesar tonight. No laurel crowns or marble statues for you. You'll be just you, dropped into the smellier corners of the eternal city, trying to survive a day without catching something fatal from a bathhouse floor. We'll talk about the sponge stick, the sewer gods, the mystery stains in the public fountains, the lead pipes, the lice combs, the shared bathwater that somehow made you dirtier than when you went in. But we'll do it slowly, gently, one quietly horrifying detail at a time, and by the end of it, you'll either be fast asleep or extremely grateful for your indoor plumbing. So, take one last sip of whatever you're drinking. Turn down your screen brightness and close your eyes if you like. Because your ancient Roman morning is about to begin. You won't like how it smells, but it'll definitely put you to sleep. You wake up to the sound of someone shouting in Latin. A rooster crows. A baby wails. Somewhere below you, two men are already arguing about fish sauce. The air is thick, hot, damp, and somehow both smoky and sour. Welcome to Rome. Not the postcard version. This is your real Roman morning. You're not in a villa. You're in an insula, a Roman apartment block, which is a generous term for what is essentially a 5-story fire trap made of cheap brick, wooden beams, and the city's collective disregard for safety. You're on the upper floor, of course. The poorer you are, the higher you sleep. Closer to the sun, and closer to structural collapse. Your room, if you can call it that, is barely wider than your outstretched arms. There's a single mattress, which is really a flattened sack of straw that crunches when you move half from the filling, half from the insect guests who also live here. Your blanket smells like old wool, mildew, and maybe regret. The stone walls sweat in summer and freeze in winter. There's a tiny hole in one wall, your only window. No glass, no shutters, just a draft that brings in smoke, kitchen fumes, and the occasional pigeon feather. You shift slightly. Bad idea. The straw pokes your back, something crawls over your foot, and your skin is already itchy. Could be fleas, could be lice, could be your imagination. Probably not. There's no lamp in your room, just a shard of morning light slipping through the hole, illuminating the dust in the air like lazy snowflakes. You see the shape of your few belongings in the gloom. A clay cup, your tunic folded in the corner, a wooden comb with 2 teeth missing, and your chamber pot. Ah, yes, the chamber pot. Your closest companion. It sits in the corner of your room, brimming with yesterday's decisions and silently judging you for them. There's no private toilet, no plumbing, no sink. If you need relief in the night, you use the pot, and in the morning, you carry it carefully, cautiously, down 4 flights of creaking, uneven stairs to dump it into the street gutter, along with everyone else's. The hallway outside your door smells of smoke, stale oil, sour wine, and hundreds of unwashed humans packed into a glorified beehive. You hear coughing, muttered prayers, the rhythmic thud of someone pounding dough against a table. Something crashes. A man curses. A dog barks. It might be yours, or someone else's. Hard to tell. As you swing your legs out of bed, your bare feet meet the stone floor, cold, hard, and slightly damp. Hopefully, it's just condensation. Hopefully, you wince. A piece of straw is stuck to your skin. You pull it off. It resists. You sit there for a moment, blinking into the dim room, trying to remember where you are. But it's not a dream. You really did wake up in ancient Rome, and you smell like it too. There's no soap, no deodorant, no minty fresh breath, just oil, sweat, and whatever clung to you in the night. There's no mirror, but if there were, you'd see the crust of sleep around your eyes, the red lines in your cheeks from the coarse fabric, the sheen of sweat already starting on your neck. It's not even 7 a.m., and your tunic will already be damp by the time you put it on. You pick it up now, rough wool, slightly stained, slightly stiff, definitely not washed this month. You pull it over your head and try not to gag at the momentary waft of fabric funk. It settles onto your skin with the loving embrace of a burlap sack. You reach for your belt, a strip of worn leather, cracked and curled like a sun-dried lizard, and cinch it around your waist. You're now dressed, barefoot, itchy, and vaguely damp, but technically dressed. There's no bathroom, not here, not even on this floor. If you want to clean your face or your hands or your anything, you'll have to go downstairs, out into the street, and find a public fountain or communal spigot. But you hesitate, because first, you need to deal with the pot. It's heavy, sloshing. You lift it with 2 hands, arms straight out, trying to balance your steps. The stairs groan beneath your feet. Each step is a gamble. You breathe through your mouth. As you reach the bottom floor, the air changes no cooler, just more aromatic. A stew of street food, open drains, animal waste, body odor, and that one tenant who insists on frying fish before sunrise. You nod to your neighbor as you pass. He's wearing half a tunic and humming to himself. He's holding his own chamber pot. It's a quiet sort of solidarity. You dump yours into the street gutter, a shallow, open channel that runs along the curb, designed to carry away the daily detritus of 10,000 bodies crammed into the city like anchovies in olive oil. The smell hits you like a slap. You don't flinch. You're getting used to it. You wipe your hands on your tunic, instantly regretting it, then look around. The street is alive, not metaphorically, literally. Flies, rats, stray dogs, chickens, a goose, maybe 2. Vendors shout prices for bread and lentils and yesterday's fish. Someone's already arguing about taxes. Someone else is vomiting into a bucket. This is your neighborhood. Welcome home. You shuffle toward the fountain if it's working today and splash a little water on your face. It's cool, slightly gritty, and probably filtered through 5 layers of lead pipe. But it's all you've got. You blink away the sting and try not to think about what else has touched this water today. There's no towel. You shake your hands dry and wipe them on your thighs. You run the wooden comb through your hair, pulling out a few hairs, a tangle, and something that might have been a crumb. You inhale deeply. The city smells like firewood, urine, roasting grain, and wet limestone. There's a breeze today. It makes things worse. Behind you, a man is cursing the gods because his sandal broke. Another is yelling at a goat. A woman is sweeping her doorstep into the gutter, of course. The sweepings float past your feet like sad confetti. You look up. The sun is rising, slow and golden, illuminating the city's cracked walls, arched windows, and tangle of laundry lines. A chariot rumbles past. The driver doesn't look. He doesn't have to. He's seen it all before. You, though you're new to this, you're starting to realize that Roman mornings don't begin with birdsong and beauty. They begin with discomfort, odor, awkwardness, and the quiet, creeping itch of ancient lice. And as the city fully wakes up around you, you realize something else. You're going to need a very long bath. If only you knew what that was like. So, you've emptied the chamber pot, wiped your face with questionable water, and dodged a goose on your way back from the gutter. You're already itchy, lightly sweating, and deeply aware of the fact that your breath smells like old grain and regret. Now it's time for breakfast, or, as the Romans called it, ientaculum, the meal that reminds you how little food and comfort can still technically qualify as sustenance. You don't go back upstairs. Too many stairs. Too little point. There's no kitchen in your room anyway. Cooking indoors is forbidden in most tenement buildings because fire spreads fast in a city built from wood, straw, and bold architectural guesses. So breakfast happens out here, on the street, beside the gutter. In full view of your fellow citizens, a few dogs, and a surprisingly alert chicken who seems deeply interested in your meal. You reach into your small satchel, the one tied with a bit of fraying rope, and pull out your breakfast, a hunk of bread. Well, bread is a strong word. It's technically panis rusticus, the rustic peasant's loaf. But in texture, it's closer to a sandstone paperweight. It was baked yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago, and has the density of a disgraced senator's conscience. You tap it against a stone wall. It does not yield. It's brownish grey, flecked with unmilled grain, and tastes faintly of ash. Not because it's burnt, although it might be, but because the communal bakery you got it from uses wood fires, old bricks, and a baking method that involves hope, smoke, and accidental charcoal. You bite into it, slowly, carefully. You chew like a thoughtful ox. It's dry, it's rough, it's full of fiber. Not in the trendy health food way, more in the you might not digest this in your lifetime kind of way. If you're lucky, you've brought a bit of oil pressed from olives that may or may not have gone rancid last week. You dip the bread. The oil adds flavor. The flavor is bitterness, with top notes of lamp wick. Sometimes, you might have a smear of garum Rome's famously beloved fermented fish sauce. It's made from fish guts left in the sun until they melt into a kind of salty brown liquid that tastes like anchovy despair and seaweed vengeance. People swear by it. You just swear. If you're very lucky and today, you're not, there might be some goat cheese, an olive, or a fig left over from a previous meal. But not today. Today, it's just bread, oil, and a growing awareness that you might die of scurvy before anything resembling pleasure reaches your mouth. There's no coffee. The Romans never had it. No tea, no juice, no milk, unless it's goat's milk, and unless the goat liked you that morning. She didn't. What you do have is wine. Yes, wine. At breakfast, because Roman water, while technically wet, isn't always drinkable. The aqueducts are engineering miracles, but they're also lined with lead and sometimes flavored by whatever died upstream. So, wine it is. But don't get excited. This is Posca watered-down sour wine, often mixed with herbs or vinegar. It's what the army drinks, what laborers drink, what you drink when you need hydration but don't want to hallucinate a minor deity at 8 a.m. You sip. It's sharp, slightly tangy, and if you pretend very hard, you can almost believe it's refreshing. You chew more bread. The chicken is still watching you, judging you, waiting for crumbs. A vendor walks by, pushing a cart of hot chickpea fritters. For a second, you consider it. Warm, fried, golden, but then you remember your coin pouch is empty and last week's debt to the bean seller still stands. You pretend your crust of bread is a fritter. You fail. A child runs past you barefoot, holding a pear. It's probably stolen. You feel a momentary pang of jealousy. Someone across the street is eating honeyed dates. You try not to look, and just when you think this couldn't get more miserable, it's time for your hygiene routine. Let's begin with your mouth. There's no toothpaste, no toothbrush. Some Romans chew on twigs or rub their teeth with crushed charcoal. Some rinse with vinegar, others with urine. Yes, urine, not just because the gods hate you, because urine in its aged fermented form contains ammonia. And ammonia, according to Roman cleaning logic, is good for whitening teeth and removing stains. So, some people wealthier than you buy jars of imported Spanish urine. It's sold in markets, stored in clay jugs, sometimes aged, sometimes reused. You do not have this luxury. You scrape your teeth with a small stick and swish with leftover wine. It does nothing. Your breath could kill a senator. Now, your skin. You're not going to bathe this morning. Baths happen later. Communal, complicated, probably terrifying. For now, you apply oil. Olive oil is the Roman answer to everything. Moisturizing, deodorizing, cleansing. You smear it on your arms, your chest, your neck. It glistens in the sunday. You feel like a buttered loaf of despair. Then comes the strigil. It's a curved metal scraper, about the length of your hand. You run it across your skin, dragging oil, dirt, dead cells, and yesterday's shame into little sticky ribbons. You wipe these off with a cloth. The cloth is not clean. Nothing is. If you're a richer Roman, someone does this for you, usually a slave. You are not a richer Roman. The strigil scrapes your back with awkward, limited reach. You give up and decide your spine doesn't need exfoliation today. Your armpits are functional. That's all you can say. You splash a bit of vinegar under one arm, then the other. It stings. You assume that means it's working. You sniff, you regloat it. Your feet are dusty, cracked, and stained with the grime of 1,000 footsteps. You consider washing them, but the nearest fountain is being used by a man rinsing fish, and you're pretty sure one of them is still alive. So, you stand. You adjust your tunic. You pat down your hair. You shake the last crumbs of bread into the street. The chicken finally gets her prize. You're clean by Roman standards, which is to say, oily, scraped, still a little itchy, and now slightly damp in new places. But you've survived breakfast. And basic hygiene. The city is waking up now. Vendors shout. Wheels clatter. A donkey screams in protest against its own existence. You sigh. It's time to go to work. But don't worry, we'll get to that soon. And yes, you'll sweat through this oil in about 15 minutes. Because in ancient Rome, hygiene isn't about being clean. It's about being cleaner than the guy next to you. You're already sweating, not just from the heat, but from the effort it took to scrape yourself half clean with olive oil and a bent piece of metal. You smell vaguely of vinegar and ancient fish sauce. Your breath could knock over a mule. And your skin, slick with oil, dust, and defeat, shines under the rising Roman sun like a sad statue made of meat. Now it's time to talk about your clothes. And I hope you weren't expecting variety. You own exactly one tunic. That's it. One. Singular. Woven from coarse wool or maybe linen if you're rich enough to be considered lower middle class by Roman standards. It's hand-stitched, possibly by your grandmother, who went blind halfway through. The hem is crooked. One sleeve is shorter than the other, and there's a patch on the back where a rat chewed through it during the winter. It's been washed maybe 3 times. Ever. Not because you're lazy, but because washing it means hauling water, boiling it over a fire, scrubbing it against a rock, wringing it out, and then drying it in the sun while praying it doesn't get stolen, blown away, or urinated on by a passing dog. So instead, like most Romans, you simply wear it until it's either unrecognizable or sentient. As you slip it over your head, the rough wool scratches your neck and shoulders. The inside is stiff with sweat salts and city dust. It clings in the wrong places and billows in the wrong breeze. There's no underwear. That's not really a thing. Some folks might wear a subligaculum, a kind of loincloth. You do not. You go commando. Just like Jupiter intended. If you're feeling formal or it's a holy day, you might wrap a second layer around yourself. A toga, perhaps. But that's unlikely. Togas are for citizens, for the rich, for senators who don't walk on their own floors. Yours would be made of scratchy wool, weigh 5 kilograms, and take 2 people to fold properly. Besides, you don't own one. So you stick to your tunic and hope the breeze is gentle today. Now, your sandals. They are, without question, the most disappointing part of your wardrobe. They are made from stiff, untreated leather, bound together with straps that dig into your ankles like gilt. The soles are thin, barely thicker than cardboard. No cushioning, no arch support. Just a barrier between you and the road, barely. And what's on that road? Let's see. Mud, grit, broken pottery, bits of fish, piles of dung, both human and animal, bits of bones, ash, feathers, pebbles, rats, and the occasional nail someone lost while repairing a cart. So, naturally, your sandals do very little to help. Within minutes of stepping outside, your feet are already blackened with dust and decorated with small pebbles that will somehow remain lodged between your toes for the rest of the day. You try to ignore them. You fail. But what's worse than your clothes is your home. Your insula, that glorious Roman apartment, is a building that the city pretends isn't on fire. Yet, it leans slightly to the left, like it's reconsidering its life choices. The outer walls are cracked, patched with clay, and darkened with soot from decades of cook fires, incense, and the constant exhalation of 10,000 lungs. Your floor on the upper level moves when you walk, not in a comforting, flexible way, in a you might fall into the baker's apartment below kind of way. Inside, your walls sweat. Literally. In the summer, moisture seeps from them like the house is crying. In winter, they freeze over your room, becomes a stone refrigerator filled with damp rags and resentment. There's no insulation, no ceiling fan, no fireplace, no candles unless you can afford them, and you can't. The air inside is always stale, always heavy, always slightly smoky. There is no kitchen, nor toilet, no windows, no furniture. Your bed is a pile of straw on the floor, or, if you're lucky, a wooden frame with rope webbing that creaks with every breath. It's infested with mites, and your blanket smells like someone buried a sheep in vinegar. You don't hang anything on the walls. Why would you? They're made of cheap brick, and everything gets covered in soot anyway. Anything remotely decorative has already been stolen, sold, or eaten by mice. If you do have furniture, it's a stool. One leg is shorter than the others, and the seat has a burn mark from the time you tried to warm your feet too close to the oil lamp. You kept it anyway, because it's the only thing to sit on besides your own sense of failure. Privacy? That's a fantasy. Your neighbors live so close. You can hear them breathe. You can hear their prayers, their arguments, their tooth pulling, their attempts at romantic connection, which are neither subtle nor brief. If someone sneezes 2 floors down, you say bless you out of instinct. The walls are that thin. You hear children crying, adults yelling, old men coughing, rats scratching, and above it all, the sound of feet on creaking wooden floors. Always feet, always movement. Like the building is full of ghosts who haven't realized they're dead yet. Sometimes the roof leaks. Sometimes it collapses. If you're on the top floor, you pray it doesn't rain. If you're on the bottom floor, you pray the people above you don't drop a chamber pot through the ceiling. Pests are a given. You don't fight them. You live with them. Mice, lice, fleas, beetles, moths, mosquitoes, spiders, pigeons, the occasional cat, and once a snake. You remember that day. You almost moved out. But where would you go? There's no suburb, no countryside escape. You live in Rome, in the belly of the beast, and the beast has digestive problems. You might daydream about a villa, a little house with columns, flowers, and mosaic floors. But that dream is about as real as the Senate's sense of ethics. So you sweep the floor with a bundle of reeds. It does nothing. You light a small oil lamp. It flickers and smokes. You place your single cup back on the floor and hope no one kicks it over tonight. And then you step out into the corridor, trying to ignore the mold spreading down the walls. A neighbor passes by. She smiles. Her teeth are mostly there. She's holding a rat by the tail. It's unclear if it's food or a pest. You nod. She nods. And you walk out into the street, into the noise, the smells, and the dust. Your clothes cling. Your sandals flap. Your body itches. But you are now fully dressed, semi-clean, and officially homeless if your ceiling gives out today. Welcome to Rome, where the architecture is ancient, and your roof is a suggestion. So, you've survived the worst part of the Roman morning, the scraping, the chamber pot shuffle, the vinegar sponge. You're now dressed, oiled, possibly infected, but upright. And unfortunately, that means it's time for work. But in ancient Rome, work doesn't mean an office or a pleasant shift behind a bakery counter. It means labor, hard labor, daily survival labor. You don't have a job, you have a function, and that function is don't die while performing unpaid civic infrastructure. You step out onto the street, and the sun is already roasting the cobblestones like nature's griddle. Your tunic sticks to your thighs. Your sandals slap against the uneven road like wet cardboard. And ahead of you is a full day of physical punishment, thinly disguised as employment. Let's talk possibilities. If you're relatively lucky, you're a mason's assistant. That means hauling bricks the size of tombstones up wooden ramps held together with rope and prayer. If you drop one, that's coming out of your pay, assuming you get paid. If you're unlucky, you work in the sewers, the Cloaca Maxima Rome's mighty drainage system. It's famous, it's ancient, and it's full of things you should never smell. You walk bent over in the dark, ankle deep in waste, guided only by torchlight, muscle memory, and the faint whisper of your regrets. If the torch goes out, you sit very still and try not to scream. If you're even less lucky than that, you're a street cleaner whose job is to sweep the literal sewage and food scraps off the road after the vendors have dumped their garbage, and before the chamber pots start flying from fourth-story windows. You're not considered a public servant. You're considered a moving broom with legs, and people will still find a way to yell at you for getting in their way. Perhaps you're a porter, lugging amphorae full of olive oil or wine through alleys designed for goats, not humans. Your hands are permanently calloused. your shoulders scream, and your spine gave up 3 jobs ago. The amphora is nearly as tall as you are and has no handles. You carry it with rope, sweat, and optimism. Your reward at the end of the day? More carrying, or maybe you're a water hauler bringing buckets from the nearest public fountain to anyone who can afford to outsource their hydration. You balance wooden pails on a stick across your back like a miserable mobile aqueduct. You try not to spill. You always spill. Let's not forget the builders, the laborers, who create Rome's famous temples, roads, bathhouses, and monuments to emperors who never lift a stone themselves. You haul gravel, you stack stone, you mix mortar with your feet. You don't get credit, you get blisters. And then there are the farmers, outside the city walls. You rise before dawn, tend to your patch of land which isn't yours, of course, and pray the weather, the gods, and the tax collectors don't all attack on the same day. You use a wooden plow, you feed it with your back, and if the harvest fails, you don't eat. It's a perfect motivational system. Now, let's say you've managed to acquire a skill. Maybe you're a potter, a cobbler, or a carpenter. You've got a stall near the market. You compete with 20 other people selling the exact same product. Customers complain, prices fluctuate, and a wealthy Roman can cancel a sale just because they don't like your face. But at least you're not underground eating mold spores. That's something, but even skilled labor has its limits. There are no unions, no health benefits, no take a sick day. If you can stand, you work, and if you can't stand, you crawl. Maybe you teach if you're literate. You instruct rich boys in Latin, math, and how to quote Virgil with smug accuracy. They don't listen. Their parents don't care. But if the boy becomes a senator one day, he might remember you and have you executed for mispronouncing his name. And women, they work too, twice as hard. They spin, weave, sell vegetables, haul water, raise children, bake bread, scrub floors, patch tunics, cure meat, clean fish, fend off stray dogs, and give birth with no painkillers in the corner of a smoky room while stirring lentils with the other hand. Some run taverns. Others operate laundry stalls, scrubbing clothes in urine vats, stomping on linen with bare feet in ammonia pools under the open sky. It smells exactly how you think it does. Then there are those who sell other services. Let's just say not everyone with makeup and perfume is heading to the temple. Even those with legal professions, scribes, clerks, messengers, aren't spared. You spend all day running errands for people who think you're invisible. Your sandals wear out weekly. Your fingers are ink-stained. Your knees ache from bowing. You go to sleep sore. You wake up sorer. And if you ever stop working, there's no safety net. No savings, no retirement. You either earn, beg, or die. And speaking of earnings, let's break that little illusion. A day's wage for a laborer might be just enough for a loaf of bread, a small cup of wine, and a few dried beans. No meat, no savings, no extras. If you miss a day of work, your stomach notices. Miss 2, your landlord notices. Miss 3, well, the city has plenty of open ditches, and then there are the overseers, the foremen, the bosses, the men with sticks and sandals who shout at you from the shade. They never lift a brick, but they know exactly how you should lift yours. They speak Latin with harsh vowels and fewer teeth. Their favorite word is faster. Their second favorite is again. They carry whips, just in case. But you obey, you nod, you carry on. Because Rome doesn't care about your comfort. Rome wants walls, aqueducts, roads, statues, and it wants them now. Your arms burn, your eyes sting, your sandals slip, your tunic clings, and you still have 7 hours to go. There's no lunch break, only less work for a short time, and maybe a crust of bread. You dream of sitting, of sleeping, of anything soft, but all you get is a splintered bench near the work site and a cup of vinegar water that smells like old grapes and disappointment. Welcome to the labor force. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it's determined to ruin you in one. Your muscles ash. Your back is a knot of complaints. You've been scraping mortar off your hands with a rock because your fingernails are basically cement trowels now. So you do what every tired Roman does. You glance at the sky and mutter a little prayer. Not because you're especially religious, but because in ancient Rome, not being religious could kill you faster than a falling amphora. Here, the gods are everywhere, above you, around you, watching you, judging you. They see your cracked sandals. They hear your stomach rumble. And they definitely know you skipped your offering last week when you spent your last coin on cheese instead of incense. You didn't forget. You just prioritized calcium. But now, you're starting to regret that because Roman religion isn't optional. It's embedded in your routine like mold in your ceiling. And the gods? They are needy. Let's start with the basics. Every day begins with a gesture, a nod, a coin left on a shrine, a whispered plea to the lares, and Penates, the household spirits who guard your family and your pantry. You hope they forgive you for storing grain with the lid off last night. There's a tiny altar in your building's courtyard, crusted with soot and pigeon droppings. Someone left a moldy fig on it. Someone else poured out wine. It smells like rot and reverence. You add your own offering, a crust of bread. It's hard as brick, but you're sure the gods won't mind. You cross yourself not like a Christian. They don't exist yet. You make the Roman gesture of devotion, fingers pressed, palm open, facing the altar. You don't know if it works. You just know that not doing it feels dangerous. Because the gods, they're not gentle. They're not merciful. They are immortal bureaucrats with lightning bolts. You've got Jupiter, king of the gods, king of thunder, king of making your bad day worse if you mock him during a storm. Juno, his wife, goddess of marriage, also goddess of grudges. Mars, god of war. He likes blood, lots of it. Venus, goddess of love and occasionally spontaneous romantic disasters. And Neptune, you don't talk about Neptune unless you're near the sea. Then you shout compliments and throw salt. But it's not just the big ones. There's a god for doors, a god for hinges, a god for dræns, a god for childbirth, another for nursing, and 3 more for puberty. There's a goddess of mildew, a spirit of mold, a minor deity who handles only bread-baking mistakes. It's not a religion. It's a divine civil service. And everyone's watching, not just the gods, but your neighbors. Did you attend the sacrifice last week? Did you bow during the procession? Did you offer wine at the temple? Or did you fake it with water? Because if your neighbor's cow dies and you were seen skipping the festival, well, guess who's getting blamed? You. Religion in Rome isn't just belief. It's performance. Public sacrifices are a spectacle. You gather with the crowd in front of a temple white marble. Shining in the Sunday, priests in spotless togas chant prayers in a monotone that makes you question whether they're human or statues with better posture. They lead a spotless animal, a bull, a pig, or a sheep to the altar. It must be pure, no blemishes, no defects. If it trips, the gods are offended. If it sneezes, the ritual is cancelled. The priest raises the blade. You avert your eyes. The animal dies with a gasp. Its blood spills into a trench. The organs are inspected, literally dissected on the spot to see if the gods are pleased. If the liver looks wrong, start over. Get another animal. Try again. Meanwhile, the smoke rises. The smell of roasted meat fills the air. You're not allowed to touch it unless the priest hands you a piece. You haven't been handed anything since the Saturnalia feast of year 770, so you watch, you nod, you clap at the right moments, and you walk home empty-handed, but you do stop at a fortune teller, just in case. She sits on a stool near the forum, draped in old wool, eyes smudged with ash, teeth like broken pottery. She tells you what the birds said this morning. You didn't know birds could gossip. She says, don't travel west, don't bathe during a full moon, and avoid anyone with a limp and a green tunic. You nod, you pay, you walk away quickly. Her breath smells like old prayers and uncooked beans. You know it's nonsense. But you also walk home the long way, just to be safe. Superstition is everywhere. You touch wood, not for luck but to ward off evil. You spit 3 times after bad news. You tie amulets to your belt to keep demons out of your tunic. You hang a phallus charm over your door not for obscenity, but for protection. The Romans believed the fascinum, a carved representation of male anatomy, could ward off envy and curses. So yes, every doorway in town is blessed with what looks like a smiling stone sausage. Children wear them around their neck, so the soldiers, sul do farmias, and nobody blink. You carve protective symbols into your doorway. You mutter spells under your breath. You never, ever speak of bad luck directly, because the gods punish arrogance and fate punishes anyone who makes eye contact with it. You know a man who whistled during a solar eclipse. He now sells stale olives and talks to cats. Coincidence? You're not willing to test it. Even the dead are watching. You never, ever build too close to a burial site. You leave coins in tomb. You don't speak a name too loudly, in case the shade hears and decides to visit. Ghosts are real. You know this. You've felt this. At night, sometimes, when the streets go quiet and the last torch flickers out, you hear footsteps behind you. You turn. No one's there. You walk faster. You whisper a prayer to Mercury, god of travelers. You clutch your amulet. You cross yourself again, just in case. Because in Rome, belief isn't a choice. It's a defense mechanism. The gods are watching. The ghosts are listening. And your neighbors? They're keeping score. So you do your rituals. You nod at the altar. You toss a coin into the fountain. You say nothing when your water tastes strange. Because some days, surviving Rome isn't about strength, it's about superstition. The sun is sliding toward the rooftops now, casting long shadows through alleyways filled with shouting, laughter, and the unmistakable smell of something overcooked and under-identified. You've made it to evening. Somehow, you're hungry. Of course you are. You've spent the day hauling, scraping, burning, praying, and possibly being cursed by a passing augur. You've eaten nothing since your morning brick of bread, and now your stomach growls like an insulted wolf. Time for the main meal of the day, Sina. But before you picture a long table, candlelight, and roasted delicacies, remember, you're not in a senator's villa, reclining on a silk couch with a goblet of honeyed wine. You're in a tenement, and dinner is a process. First, you have to acquire food, and that means navigating the marketplace. You shuffle through the forum holatorium, the vegetable market, your nostrils bombarded with the smells of onions, garlic, musty lentils, bruised turnips, and fish that should have been eaten yesterday, maybe the day before. It stares at you from a wooden slab, glassy-eyed, its mouth open, in what looks like a silent warning. Vendors shout prices. Children beg for scraps. Someone is haggling over 2 olives like it's a land dispute. You pass stalls selling wilted greens, hard cheese, and something labelled meat that's unidentifiable under the flies. There's bread, of course. Always bread. Round loaves stamped with the baker's seal, already going hard in the evening air. You don't have much coin, so you settle for lentils, a carrot, and half a small onion. Luxury, you take your bounty home, past street performers, beggars, and someone vomiting wine into a gutter. Back in your room or on the shared hearth, if you're lucky, you prepare your feast. Slowly, carefully. There's no stove, no oven, you have fire. Maybe your cookpot is dented, cracked, and older than your neighbor's second wife. You boil your lentils, you slice the carrot, you toss in the onion and pray it wasn't the spicy kind that tastes like regret. You might have a dried herb or two, maybe some coriander seed, maybe some mystery leaf your friend insists is definitely not poisonous. Quote, "The smell rises. It's not bad. It's humble. You eat it out of the pot, sitting on the floor, legs crossed, too tired to do anything but chew. There's no dessert, unless you count hope. Now, if you were rich, oh, then Cena is an entirely different beast. In an elite Roman domus, dinner is a performance. It begins in the atrium, where guests arrive in carefully arranged pecking order. You'd be escorted to a dining room triclinium where couches line the walls. You recline sideways, elbow propped, as slaves bring you course after course. Appetizers might include eggs, olives, dormice stuffed with nuts, or lettuce soaked in vinegar. Then the mains: roasted boar, peacock, flamingo tongue, honey-glazed ham, or fish boiled in wine. Then sweets cakes soaked in honey, fruit drizzled with syrup, and little pastries shaped like tiny gods. You eat until you can't. Then someone reads poetry, or a naked flute player dances, or a drunken senator recites Virgil until he falls into the wine bowl. But you're not invited to that. You, dear listener, are in the other Rome, the louder, cheaper, realer Rome. So after dinner, you go find entertainment, or what passes for it. First stop, the tavern. Taverns are everywhere. Some carved into basements, others spilling out onto street corners with mismatched stools, wine jugs, and toothless regulars arguing about gladiators. You enter, duck slightly to avoid the beam. The room is dark, noisy, and smells like smoke, sweat, and fermented mistakes. Wine is served in clay cups. There are no menus, no candles, no music, just shouting, drinking, and the occasional slap. The wine, absolutely terrible. It's cut with water, sometimes seawater, sometimes vinegar, sometimes lead. It tastes like betrayal and gives you a headache that arrives before you finish your second sip. You drink anyway, because it's what people do. Around you, people gamble with dice, trade gossip, and try not to start fights. A man recites bad poetry in exchange for figs. Someone's passed out in the corner. Someone else is proposing marriage to a bowl of olives. It's loud, chaotic, and somehow weirdly comforting. But taverns aren't the only option. You might wander down to the forum, where public speakers rant about taxes, war, and whatever scandalous thing the Vestal Virgins might have done last week. Or head toward the amphitheater, where gladiators fight not just for glory, but for your distracted, wine-blurred attention. Blood is entertainment here. You watch men in armor try to kill each other, or perhaps trained animals chase unfortunate slaves. People cheer. Vendors sell peanuts. A man bets his tunic on a Thracian's left hook. Or maybe you prefer the theatre: cheap seats, crude jokes, wooden masks, and exaggerated gestures. Plays filled with slapstick, mistaken identities, and dramatic monologues about urine taxes. You laugh. You drink. You pretend for an hour or two that the gods aren't watching, and your landlord isn't standing 3 rows behind you. Festivals are better. Saturnalia, puri shows. Slaves switch roles with masters. People wear strange costumes. Public drunkenness is not only tolerated, it's expected. You remember last year when a man danced naked in the street while balancing a tray of figs on his head? He might be your landlord now. Or maybe you visit a market show where trained bears dance, monkeys juggle, and fire breathers amaze crowds with sparks and soot and the faint smell of burned eyebrow. It's all ridiculous, but you cheer anyway, because fun is rare and laughter is free. Eventually you start to feel the day catching up to you. Your legs ache, your belly rumbles again. The wine is wearing off, leaving behind a trail of dull nausea and philosophical regret. You make your way home, past sleeping dogs and the last flickers of torchlight. The streets are quieter now, though not silent. You hear a woman singing to a baby, a man coughing up the sins of his last meal, a cart rattling down the alley with a suspicious clinking of unwashed dishes. You return to your building, climb the creaking stairs, avoid the loose board that nearly killed you last week. Your room greets you with its usual smell, damp, oil, and exhaustion. You lie back on your straw mat, your stomach half full, your head slightly spinning, and you realize, today you survived Rome. You worked, you worshipped, you ate, and you almost enjoyed yourself. Almost. You close your eyes, and somewhere outside, someone starts playing a flute badly. You hope they stop. They don't. You wake in the middle of the night, not from noise, not from dreams, but from something, a strange tickle in your throat, a sweat that feels colder than it should, a slight tremor in your limbs, like your body's trying to warn you, but politely. You sit up, slowly, carefully. Your straw mattress crunches underneath you like a bag of stale lettuce. You're suddenly aware of your pulse fast, dry, too close to the surface. Your head is heavy. Your stomach is debating. Something's wrong. You know it. And in ancient Rome, that's never good. Because here, sickness isn't just unpleasant. It's potentially everything. It might be a passing cold. It might be malaria. It might be the gods, angry that you skipped the shrine last week and muttered something unkind about Jupiter's sandals. In Rome, illness always has a reason, a divine one, or a deeply confusing one. You crawl to the corner of your room and fumble for your water jar. You sip. It tastes like clay and mystery. It doesn't help. Outside, the city is still. Too still. The usual coughs and clatter are gone, replaced with a hush that makes you uneasy. Rome never sleeps. But it does get quiet when there's a fever going around. You've seen it before. One day, everyone's selling fish. The next, everyone's burning clothes in the street. You lie back down, try to breathe, try to think. In ancient Rome, getting sick is not a private affair. It's a performance, a ritual, a negotiation with death conducted through sweat, prayer, and whatever herbs your neighbor insists are good for your spleen. You'll visit a medicus tomorrow if you can afford one. But don't get your hopes up. Roman medicine is enthusiastic, but not particularly effective. Let's break it down. You've got 4 humors in your body: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Yes, bile. Health is balance. Illness is imbalance. So if you've got a fever, too much blood, coughing, phlegm, obvious. Diarrhea, definitely excess yellow bile. Melancholy, too much black bile. Or possibly you were born under a sad star. The solution? Rebalance. How? Bloodletting. That's right. They cut you open to let the excess blood out. Could be your arm, could be your foot, could be your neck. If the physician is ambitious and you're particularly unlucky, they use a knife or a leech, or, if you're fancy, a heated cup to draw the blood to the surface like some kind of confused winemaking ritual. You feel faint? That's progress. Other treatments include vomiting intentionally, yes, on purpose, with herbs, sometimes with a feather, inhaling incense smoke, swallowing crushed minerals, rubbing pigeon dung on the affected area, listening to music while standing in olive oil, sitting in a sulfur spring until you pass out. Your local doctor might also recommend a warm beet compress, which is as ridiculous as it sounds. You've heard stories: men with fevers wrapped in cabbage leaves, children fed goat urine, women given wine infused with crushed oyster shells to cure fainting. Spoiler, it doesn't work, but it does give you something to complain about. If you're rich, you get a house call. If you're poor, you wait at the temple steps and hope someone tosses you an herbal poultice or a stale prayer. And the temples are busy. People flock to the Aesculapian temples dedicated to the god of healing. You've probably seen them. People lying on mats, surrounded by smoke and whispers, sick bodies wrapped in cloth, hopeful relatives burning incense. You go to sleep there and hope Aesculapia sends a dream, a sign, a cure, a snake slithering across your legs, which is a good omen somehow. You wake up sweaty, confused, and still sick, but at least now you can say, "I've dreamed of divine snakes," which is something. Let's talk disease. You live with it, daily, casually. Your water is stored in lead pipes. Your food spoils fast. You wash your clothes in communal vats of ammonia-rich urine. There are no refrigerators, no germ theory, no antibiotics. A simple cut can kill you. A sneeze could be the beginning of the end. Fevers are frequent. Rashes are routine. Diarrhea is almost a lifestyle. Rome is a city of open wounds, and that's before the plague shows up. Yes, the plague. More than one, actually. The Antonine Plague, the Plague of Cyprian, the Plague of Galen. They sweep through like whispered curses, killing thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands. Symptoms vary: fever, chills, vomiting, boils, internal bleeding, and that special look people get when they realize they're not getting better. When that happens, no one comes near you. Even your friends step back. They drop food at your door. They whisper prayers from a distance. And they start cleaning out your room before your body cools. Hospitals don't exist, not like modern ones. If you're a soldier, there are valetudinaria field hospitals. If you're anyone else, you either recover at home or you don't. You might be buried in a communal grave or dumped in the Tiber if space runs out. There are no funerals for the poor, just smoke and silence and the sound of flies. But illness isn't always quick. Sometimes it lingers. There are men who've been coughing for 10 years, women who walk with a limp from a poorly healed break, children with swollen bellies and brittle hair from years of malnutrition. You know a boy who sees visions. His mother says he's blessed. The temple priest says he's cursed. The physician says he should drink goat milk and avoid bright colors. He still sees visions. And then there's death, always present, always hovering. You smell it in alleyways. You hear it in temple bells. You feel it when someone sneezes, and everyone steps back just slightly too fast. You prepare for it. You write your will even if you have nothing. You leave instructions for your burial, incense, coins for Charon, a clean tunic, if possible. You hope someone remembers your name. You hope no one mocks your offering if your funeral is cheap. You hope the gods are in a good mood when you arrive. But mostly, you just hope to make it through the night. Your sweat is worse now. Your pulse is weaker. The city sleeps, but you lie awake, counting breaths and sins. You close your eyes. You whisper a prayer to Apollo. And you listen to the silence between heartbeats. Because in ancient Rome, you don't recover. You survive. You wake to the sound of a baby screaming, not yours, someone else's, a floor below, or maybe across the alley. It doesn't matter. In Rome, the walls are thin, and the burdens are shared. Family life here isn't soft. It's not the cozy hearth, embroidered cushions, and slow mornings you might imagine. It's labor, noise, bodily functions, and pressure. You shift in your straw bed, your back still sore from yesterday's work or childbirth, or both. Because if you're a woman in ancient Rome, your life is already planned for you, not in romance, not in riches, but in roles, each one heavier than the last. You belong to someone. Always. First, your father. Then, your husband. Maybe your son. One day, if he outlives you, you have no legal identity of your own, not really. You can't vote. You can't hold office. You can't write a will without permission. You are useful. In the same way that a storage jar or a mule is useful. And what's your use? Marriage, childbirth, rearing the next generation of citizens, workers, or soldiers. And you begin early. By 12 or 13, most girls are married assigned, really to older men chosen by their fathers. You may meet him on your wedding day. He may already have children. He may already have a mistress. You're told this is normal. You wear a flame-colored veil. You carry the symbols of household life, a spindle, a distaff, keys to cupboards you don't own. The marriage is sealed with a ceremonial touch, right hand to right hand, and then sealed more literally later that night in a small room with too many ears nearby. And then you're a matron, a matrona, a Roman wife, a Roman womb. The average Roman woman gives birth 5 to 10 times in her life. Most of those births are at home, on a stool, surrounded by other women, sisters, midwives, neighbors with strong hands and stronger nerves. No anesthesia, no privacy, no guarantee of survival. Some die of bleeding, some of infection, some of exhaustion, before the child ever draws breath. If the child survives, and you do too, there is no rest. Infant mortality is brutal. 2 out of 3 children die before the age of 5, from fever, from hunger, from accidents, from curses, depending on who you ask. You nurse, if you can. If you're wealthy, a slave nurses for you. But if you're poor, your child clings to you day and night. You sleep lightly, eat less, and rise before dawn to grind grain, haul water, patch clothing, and hush the baby while your other children fight over stale bread. Your day is not your own. You prepare food, you make thread, you clean wounds, you bury pets, you comb lice from tiny scalps. You remember your name, but only just. You are mother, wife, daughter, servant, nurse, cook, wall, anchor, and the world outside rarely sees you. The forum is for men, the Senate, the court, the stage, all male spaces. If you go outside, it's with a purpose, a modest pace, averted eyes. If you're seen talking too much, walking too freely, smiling too widely, someone will comment. The worst part? Sometimes it's another woman. Now let's talk about children. In Rome, childhood is short. Cute babies are celebrated, but as soon as they can walk, they're put to work. Boys and girls begin helping around the home as toddlers, feeding animals, carrying water, watching younger siblings. They are expected to obey, to perform, to suffer quietly. Rich boys go to school sometimes. They learn Latin, Greek, rhetoric, law. They carry wax tablets and recite poetry while their tutors correct every breath. Poor boys, they work in workshops, on farms, selling candles, selling themselves. Sometimes girls almost never go to school. Their education is domestic. How to manage a home, please a husband, survive childbirth, and stay quiet. If they can sew, that's good. If they can read, that's suspicious. And if they ask questions, that's dangerous. Still, children find ways to be children. They play games knucklebones, marbles, hoops, dolls made from rags or wax. They race in the street, make up songs, dare each other to steal fruit from a cart. They laugh. They lie. They steal kisses behind the bakery. They whisper about the gods and ghosts and what really happens when someone dies. But even joy here is borrowed. At 7 or 8, Roman children are expected to start learning their adult role. Boys practice with wooden swords. Girls help deliver babies. They watch bodies age. They see siblings die. They help carry water to wash the corpse. They learn the weight of grief before they learn how to write their own name. As for fathers, they hold absolute authority over the household. The paterfamilias can arrange marriages, disown children, sell family members into slavery, and even technically order executions. Most don't, but the power hovers, unspoken, like smoke in the rafters. Fathers are expected to be stern, rational, moral. They gamble, they drink, they visit taverns, temples, other women, and they expect obedience at home. If a child disappoints, punishment is swift. A slap, a belt, a beating with a rod if needed. You don't complain. You thank the gods it wasn't worse. There are moments, though small, flickering moments, where the weight lifts. At festival time, fathers smile, mothers sing, children dance barefoot in the dirt, faces sticky with honey cakes. You share food, you tell stories, you drink watered wine, and forget, for just an hour, how fragile everything is. You hold your child a little tighter, just in case, because in Rome, nothing is guaranteed. Not a long life, not a quiet death, not even a safe morning. So you love hard, you work harder, and you pray every night to any god that will listen, for survival, for peace, for one more ordinary day. It's afternoon in the city. The sun now hangs low in the Roman sky, glaring down like a disapproving god. The streets shimmer with heat. Dust floats in the air like a second skin. And everyone is irritated. This is the worst time of day. Not because of work. That's already broken your back. But because this is when Rome boils. Children scream. Vendors shout. Tempers flare. The smells worsen. The wine wears off. And suddenly, everyone seems to remember exactly who owes them money, who insulted them at La Saturnalia, and who's been pouring their chamber pot out way too early in the morning. You feel it in the air, a certain hum of tension, like something's about to snap. You pass a man arguing loudly with a fishmonger, not about the price, about the fish's soul. You don't stop. You've learned not to. Down the alley, 2 women scream at each other in front of a laundry vat, waving wet tunics like flags of war. Next to the fountain, 3 boys fight over a coin they all swear they found first. A dog barks. A goat joins in. A man slips on a discarded fig and curses Mars for not protecting his dignity. This is everyday Rome, a city so packed, so loud, so chaotic, that conflict is not an interruption, it's just another street sound. Your body aches from the morning's labor, and now your ears ache from the yelling. But worse than the arguments are the systems, because in Rome, justice isn't blind, it's just nearsighted, and very, very selective. You trip on a stone, nearly fall face first into the dirt. You look up and see a familiar sight. A litter being carried through the crowd. On it reclines a senator, lazily sipping wine from a golden cup, his bare feet dangling over the edge as if the laws of gravity and consequence don't apply. They don't. This man can destroy your livelihood with a nod. He can order your arrest, seize your property, or seduce your daughter, and then complain about the cost of her dowry. He's above you in every sense, and if you say anything, if you so much as look irritated, that's grounds for punishment. But if he breaks a law, well, he's inspired by the gods. How convenient. Roman society is built on strata. You feel it under your feet. You breathe it in the dust. At the top, citizens. then freedmen, then slaves, then the rest. And even among citizens, there are ranks: senators, equestrians, plebeians, clients, hangers on, hopefuls, nobodies. You are somewhere in the middle, or the bottom, or beneath it entirely, depending on who you ask. Which brings us to law enforcement. You might think Rome has police, and it does sort of. They're called lictors and urban cohorts men who patrol the streets with rods and short swords. They don't wear uniforms. They don't answer to you. They answer to power. If a riot breaks out, they don't calm it. They crush it. They swing clubs. They shout Latin threats. They drag people off by the tunic and toss them into holding pits that smell like fermented armpit and old blood. There is no trial for most people, just a fine, a beating, or both. You've seen a thief punished before, caught stealing bread, stripped, tied to a post in the forum, whipped while the crowd shouted conflicting moral opinions. You watched. You didn't want to, but everyone does. Some cheer, some look away. A few children laugh. One man took notes for a play. The thief cried out. The blood ran, and then the crowd moved on, because a juggler nearby had started balancing amphorae on his head, and that was more entertaining. Public punishment is theatre, so is the court system. If you're lucky enough to get a trial, it's not about guilt, it's about rhetoric. Who can speak louder? Who has better friend? Who's wearing a cleaner toga? Rich men hire orators, trained professionals, who argue circles around logic. They shout. They quote poetry. They cry on command. You can barely afford sandals that match. If you lose, you might pay a fine, lose your property, or be sentenced to public labor repairing roads in the sun, digging ditches, or scrubbing graffiti from public walls with a brick and shame. If you're a slave, you don't even get that. You're punished privately, or shawled, or thrown into the arena for fun. Speaking of slavery, Rome runs on it. Everywhere you look, there's someone doing forced labor, not metaphorical, literal. Household slaves, field slaves, sex slaves, rowers, gladiators, teachers, accountants, doctors. Yes, even your physician might be enslaved. They don't wear chains. Not always. They're property. But they speak, work, dream like anyone else. Some are treated well, others aren't treated at all. And if a slave kills their master, the punishment is clear. All slaves in that household are executed. Every single one. You remember when it happened last year? 200 were crucified. A silent field of bodies. No one talked about it, but no one forgot. Conflict in Rome isn't just personal. It's political, religious, economic, familial. You've seen neighbors throw punches over a water jug. You've seen brothers curse each other over a borrowed donkey. You've seen riots break out because a politician raised the price of grain during a festival unforgivable. Sometimes the Praetorian Guard shows up emperor's men, heavily armed, faces like granite. They clear the streets without speaking. You don't want to be nearby when they do. And yet, Rome holds together. Barely. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's routine. Maybe it's because people are too tired to revolt and too hungry to hope. But even now, as the heat bakes the bricks and sweat drips down your back, there's a strange stability. People still line up at the bakery. Children still chase chickens through alleyways. Women still hug loaf of fish like it matters. Because it does. Because in Rome, surviving the afternoon is enough. Justice is a gamble. Safety is relative. And peace is temporary. You duck into a shaded archway. Wipe your face. Take a long, slow breath. A man nearby is ranting about omen. A woman passes by, armful of laundry, face set like stone. A child is crying. You don't know why. No one does. And somewhere down the road, a crowd starts to shout. You don't run toward it. You don't run away. You just walk home because you're not in the business of changing Rome. You're just trying to stay out of its way. Night has fallen over Rome, not the soft, glowing, candle-lit sort of night you might picture in your mind. Not a peaceful dark. This night is heavy, uneasy, alive. The sun sets early in the alleys. Shadows grow fast between buildings. And the city, stripped of daylight, becomes something else older, sharper, and far less forgiving. There are no street lamps, no electricity, no glow from windows, only the flicker of oil lamps, torches, and the occasional fire, intentional or otherwise. If someone drops a torch, it can take out half a block. You've seen it before. So now, every creak of wood, every shifting ember makes your shoulders twitch. You're home, if that's what we're calling it, back in your cramped upper floor room, lit only by a single flame you had to coax from a piece of flint and dried reed. The oil in your lamp smells like old olives and smoke. It sputters with every gust of wind that sneaks through the hole in your wall. You sit on your straw mat, you stare into the flame, and you wait, because this is the part of the day that Romans don't like to talk about, the night. In daylight, you pretend you're safe. At night, you know you're not. Out in the street, the city still murmurs. Not the cheerful buzz of the morning markets, not the clamour of the afternoon crowds. This is a different sound. Low voices, rushed footsteps, the occasional sharp scream that ends too quickly. You don't open your door after dark. No one does unless you're a fool, a soldier, or someone who has nothing left to lose. Let's be clear. Rome is not safe at night. The city's size, its winding streets, its overpopulation, all of it turns toxic after sundown. If your building catches fire, you climb to the roof and hope it spreads downward instead of up. If someone knocks on your door after dark, you stay very, very still. If you have food left over, you hide it. And if you have a candle, you guard the flame like your life depends on it, because it might. Let's talk about the dangers. First, fire. Rome burns. Frequently. It's a city of wooden floors, clay tiles, straw mattresses, and open flames. The fire brigade, the vigiles, do their best. But the city is a tinderbox. One overturned lamp, one angry drunk, one unlucky lightning strike, and entire districts vanish in smoke. You remember the last time the sky turned red. People screamed through the alleys. Men carried their children, their idols, their bread ovens, whatever they could grab. You saw a woman throwing jugs of wine onto the flames, convinced it would appease the gods. It didn't. Next, crime, thieves, cutthroats, men with knives, and no moral distractions. In the day, they blend in. At night, they thrive. They hide in the arches, behind carts, near tavern doors. Some are just desperate. Others, well, they enjoy the dark. There are no patrols after a certain hour. The urban cohorts go home. The rich hire guards. The poor, they bolt the door and pray to whatever god doesn't charge a fee for protection. If you're caught outside without a torch, you're a target. You've seen people dragged into alleys. Heard it anyway. And when you find a sandal in the street the next morning, you don't ask questions. You just step over it. Then there's disease. Yes, again, because the night air. It's not just cold, it's bad. Romans call it malum, air, bad air. And they believe it carries disease. Fevers, madness. They're not entirely wrong. The fog that rolls in from the Tiber is thick and strange. The air smells different at night, heavier, damp, and full of invisible threats. If you go out with wet hair, you will get sick. That's just common sense. Or superstition. Or both. And finally, the dead. This is Rome, after all. The city sits on centuries of bone. Graves line the roads just beyond the walls. Mausoleums crumble into ruins. Cemeteries overflow. and old tombs are sometimes reopened for renovation. You hear things, sometimes, not just footsteps or voices, scratching. You try to tell yourself it's rats. You try harder to believe it's cat, but deep down, you've heard the stories. Ghosts don't wait for festivals. They visit when the world is quiet. And the worst thing? They might not even be angry. They might just be lonely. Some people leave bread near the windowsill. Others sprinkle salt in a circle before bed. You wear your amulet under your tunic just in case. You've never seen a ghost, but you've seen what happens to people who say they have. Eyes wide, lips cracked, hands that shake even when it's warm. They don't lie. Not about this. So you lie back now. The room is dark. The flame is low. The air is thick. You hear creaking from above, or maybe below, or maybe the building itself is sighing again. You share the room with mice, and probably a beetle. You hear it chewing on something that used to be food. Your body aches. Your face is warm. You smell like old oil and exhaustion. Outside, someone is laughing, not a joyful laugh. The kind that starts too loud and ends too fast. You roll onto your side. Try to rest. Try not to think about the fact that your bed is a handful of straw. Your ceiling is one kick away from collapsing. And the only thing between you and the cold night is a thin tunic and a vague sense of hope. You whisper a prayer to any deity still awake. You close your eyes. You wait for sleep to find you. And you try, genuinely try, not to think about the fact that in ancient Rome, not everyone wakes up. You're still lying there. The oil lamp is almost out, just a thin curl of smoke where flame used to be. The heat from the day lingers in the walls, like it's been trapped there for centuries, which, in some buildings, it has. Outside, the city finally starts to settle. The last wine drinkers stagger home. The final curses of the day are muttered, forgotten. A door slams. A dog whines. Then, quiet. And here you are, wrapped in a blanket that smells like rain, clay, and weeks of sweat, stretched out on a straw mat full of questions, listening to mice shuffle under the floorboards, and hoping, just hoping they're only mice. You breathe slowly. You blink into the dark, and for the first time today, there's no task left to do. You've survived an entire day in ancient Rome. You woke in a room the size of a pantry. You shared the morning with your chamber pot. You ate bread hard enough to use as a weapon. You scraped yourself clean with oil and a metal spoon. You wrapped yourself in a tunic that doesn't quite fit. You carried, hauled, labored. You prayed to gods you barely understood. You whispered to spirits you pretended not to believe in. You endured noise, heat, filth, and fear. You watched the city heave and churn like a great animal with too many legs. You navigated angry vendors, toothless fortune tellers, bloodletting physicians, and unpredictable senators in silk togas. And still you made it tonight. You ate your lentils. You drank your wine. You smiled, maybe, when someone tripped over a chicken. You sat in the dark and wondered how many days like this a person can survive. And the answer is a lot. Because somehow they did. They lived in this world. The real Romans. The ones no one carved into marble or wrote about in poems. Not senators or generals, but people like you. Tenement dwellers, street labourers, water howlers, strigil scrapers, mothers, midwives, market criers, bread eaters, the anonymous millions who filled the streets and gave Rome its heartbeat. They lived, they loved, they got lice, they scratched, they shouted, they believed, they feared death every day, in every form, and they laughed anyway. Somehow, you in this story did too. You've seen now what it means to be civilized in Rome. It doesn't mean cleanliness. It doesn't mean comfort. It doesn't mean a hot bath or a warm bed or clean fingernails. It means enduring, because the ancient world didn't offer comfort. There were no toothbrushes, no anesthesia, no privacy, no security, no food safety regulations. But there was life. Messy, smelly, strange, beautiful life. A dinner with friends, using fingers instead of forks. A moment in the bathhouse where the water was just the right temperature. A prayer that felt heard. A coin found in the dirt. A festival where someone finally noticed your song. Small things. But in Rome, that's everything. And here you are now, drifting slowly into the quiet space where time stretches and thoughts unravel. And maybe, just maybe, part of you feels a little grateful. Grateful for your pillow, your sink, your toothpaste, your private bathroom with a lock and 0 public sponges. Grateful for showers with knobs, windows with glass, beds with springs. Grateful that when you feel sick, someone knows what a germ is. Grateful that when night falls, your biggest fear is an email, not an earthquake, a curse, or an angry goat. Yes, modern life has its problems, but tonight, those problems feel smaller. Because you don't live in ancient Rome, you only visited, and now it's time to leave. So as you lie there wrapped in your own sheets, breathing air that doesn't reek of fish brine and incense, just rest. You're warm, you're safe, you're still. Let the straw mat fade. Let the sounds of the street fall away. Let the flickering torchlight dissolve into soft, quiet dark. You are not in a crumbling tenement. There's no rat near your foot, no lice in your hair, no boiling pot of lentils waiting to be stirred. Just your breath. Slow, steady. The room is calm, the world quieter now. And as you drift off, remember, you don't have to wake up in ancient Rome. Sleep well.